Hi, I'm Greg Schaefer, and welcome to the virtual CISO moment. We've got Chuck Sirois with us here today from Ignite Cyber, talk about all sorts of interesting things that he's doing in the cyber realm. Chuck, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great
We'd
to
love
be here.
to would love to hear a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, why you do it. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, happy Friday for those of us in a Friday. I don't know. This is recording, so anybody hear this, on a Friday, but pretend it's Friday, everybody. It's happy for me, so share the excitement. I'm over here in Nashville, Tennessee. Basically, I try to focus on, basically cybersecurity is my interest. And really what I'm after is the next set of AR sunglasses. So my particular focus and what I do is all driving towards augmented reality sunglasses at this point. And I think if I can see that, then I'll have reached some goals. But my name is Chuck Sirois. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm a cybersecurity guy. So good to meet everybody on a Friday.
Well, very good, very good. And so I understand going way back in your past, we'll start there, that you are a U.S. Navy veteran?
Yes. Well, yeah. So, I started off as a Navy veteran in aviation, of all things. And then I wanted to get out and do something. So I come from a very poor background. And basically to get ahead, right? I couldn't be a doctor. So I went in the Navy. I guess that's logically how you do that, right? Be a doctor, go in the Navy. Okay, so that's what I did. And then I went to college and things were, it was the 90s. It was pretty boring. Cybersecurity was a thing, sort of. It was just kind of a baby. There were some people doing it, but generally you were an IT guy or you were something else. There was no security kind of profession. And so I think I kind of jumped in when that started to pick up to have a reason to kind of attack. It started to become profitable. People started using the internet and, people started getting attacked. And so that's where I started. And then that brought me into sort of the cybersecurity world where I started building tools. I found that was my focus it was something that people weren't really doing at the time. And that helped me solve some problems, right? Because I knew how everything worked and I could build the stuff to break it. Then I truly knew the inner working details. So in order to be a cybersecurity expert, you had to know everything. And so that was very mentally stimulating for me. And that drove me off into the cybersecurity world. And I built some tools. And then I was solving problems for one particular company that I worked at in Boston. I started my career in Boston and New York City. So if I talk a little fast and I don't have a Southern drawl, that's probably why.
Oh, I'm originally from just north of New York, so I can translate. Don't worry.
Oh, there you go. There you go. See, you'll keep up just fine.
Right.
But, just basically being in the field at that time was awesome, and being hungry was awesome, and not having the tools, and it was just a new world that was opening up, and so just wanting to do more in that area. So I was helping one particular company solve their cybersecurity and IT based problems. Like I said, cybersecurity really wasn't even a full-time function. It was like, hey, Chuck, go write some scripts and take care of this, patching or whatever.
Right.
And that's what it was. And then that really grew very, very fast because I was solving problems for that one company. And there was some gaps in there. Like I'd solve a problem, then there'd be another business challenge and I'd help them solve that. We'd write them stuff. And so it was kind of off and on. Then I was picking solutions to do those things. And one of those vendors, he said to me, he says, you're really good at picking these solutions and plugging it in. Why don't you go do this? You look pretty bored. This looks really easy for you. Go do it for a whole bunch of companies. My eyes to be, working with different vendors. And that got me into a position to where I could launch technology, right? So I could take new technology, bring it to market and make a difference. So to me, I was able to talk to many different companies. They were customers, right? To these companies. To me, it was just things to do, right? I had all these problems I could now solve. And that took me into, all the areas of Boston, New York City, all the big business there needed help at that time. And then, of course, the federal government, there was 9/11. And then we had, big cybersecurity events and drivers, a lot of them, nation state driven. So that got me into the federal stuff, the federal territory, and eventually helping the federal government fight nation state adversaries in real time. I suddenly found myself in the basement of a 3-letter agency going, what is this? We need to stop that. That's not good. We shouldn't be doing that. And those kinds of things. And so one of them was the OPM breach in 2015, the biggest breach at the time.
Right.
And so that was a lot of fun, and that got me to do even more. And so I found that I could build some things that were helpful in helping these companies. And one of them is really focused around SMB, largely because that's where a lot of the problem is. And so I see where SMB and enterprise has the same kind of issues. It's just kind of presented differently, and there's more people to deal with it in different ways. But largely, if you're a one-person shop and you're doing the money machine thing, it's largely the same as IBM. It's just managed and probably less accurate. But so we get into this big technology kind of quorum where we're stuck with this innovation problem, because we can't innovate because I can't get my AR glasses yet because the security is not there, right? There's the capabilities there, but to implement, it's just not going to be stable, not going to be secured, lots of things preventing. So to streamline that adoption process and help SMBs and enterprises the same, I found 2 specific areas where we're all weak, all related to people, right? So first of all, we know we don't have enough. If we had armies of people, that would help. When I did the OPM breach, they had 17 people and $27 million in products, and there's just breaches all over the place. It didn't help them. It didn't work. So what was missing, and what is missing at these companies that are getting ransomware today? The big ones. Is anybody going to jail? Is somebody not doing something? Are they in front of the Senate going, we didn't do these basic things? No, they said, we're not sure. They pointed fingers. I'm actually mentioned in one of the Senate reports for OPM. And it's kind of like, you don't want to be the one that clicked the fish, right? You don't want to be that one. You don't want to be the one that said, don't do this or don't do that. And that's what caused it. So there's two big areas, all related to people. The first one is basic security. We're not, these adversaries are not coming after 0 days. Those are really hard. Nation states are doing that. And specific attacks, those are really hard to fight. But it's so much easier to buy a phishing kit for $80 on the dark web. There was, last year at this time, there was over 700 new phishing kit servers created, like just in 1 month. And it's been happening ever since. It's taken off wildly with ransomware. And we're not able to defend against it. These companies, big, small, wherever, they're focused on the big ones, of course, because they haven't fixed the problem yet and they can pay. If you're a little company and you can pay, you're a huge target. The only way you're not a target is if you're doing bad, right? You don't have any money.
Great.
But we can see the security controls from the outside too. The bad guys have a way of actually, mapping your external attack surface area, because they don't want to attack targets that are hardened. It's not beneficial. So the actual phishing kits are designed to help you find these softened targets. And turns out 90% of the world is a softened target right now because they don't have basic security settings to prevent phishing. And then,
and I know that's one of the things that the government has been talking about, like as far as like this Russia-Ukraine situation that's going on. It's like, well, how can companies be more secure and try to prevent that? And just to touch on what you just said there, that they're basically saying, well, make sure you're doing the things that you should already be doing. And sometimes I feel a little sad hearing that sort of advice, because it's like we shouldn't wait until that there is an incident, a change in threat, the threat environment, in order to be doing the right thing. So, but anyway,
actually, that's a really good point, because you won't see, if you look in the guidelines for the US government, it's a little irritating because they don't mention phishing at all. And things like
really,
it's very, very rare. There's a reason why they don't, because they mandate that you have to have the basic phishing protections turned on. So it's not an issue for them. So if you do, it's called BOD, 1801 was, it's 1801 because in 2018 was when it hit. But it's a binding operational directive for anybody who does business with the federal government. If you have any kind of intelligence related to the federal government, you sold them something, you have that record of transaction, it's a piece of security software, then you should be following this operational directive. Whether or not you are, it's a different story. You should be, because if they figure it out, and that's the reason, you'll be liable somehow or whatever. But this BOD 1801 says to do these basic protections, DMARC, SPF, DKIM. It tells you how to do it. And it says you have to have this by this certain time, or we can't email with you. Right?
And how does that fold into CMMC? Is it referenced by? Is it
CMMC looks at that stuff and goes, oh, this is what the federal government mandates, but they didn't really focus on these operational directives. They just focus on the guidelines, which are non-specific. So we all have this problem where if you go look up your DMARC right now, any company. I had to do this with RSA last year at this time. I said, RSA, they're a partner of mine, and they haven't stopped me from talking about them, but they didn't have their phishing controls turned on. So at one of my phishing tests was to attack you as RSA admin at rsa.com, phish you and say, here's a security update for your security software. That was one of my pen tests, and it worked amazingly because rsa.com didn't have a DMARC at the time. So I can impersonate them. So I'm like, and I could see that I can impersonate them. And who's not an RSA customer, right? How can you not? Right. You can figure out who the RSA customers are. And so you can just go and attack them. And so that's how the pipeline gets taken. And that's how the meat company gets taken down. It's through the people you trust, because nobody's going to click a fish that looks funky. You click a fish you trust from somebody you do business with. And the only way you get tricked into clicking that is if your basic systems don't work. So there's a big problem with the basic systems, and we're trying to train the end user to be a security device. It's really, really odd to me. How do we come into an industry where we put email servers on the web? First of all, Exchange servers on the web. Who's doing that? Or RDP on the web? Like, hey, they were hit by RDP. Nobody has RDP on the web. They can't get in that way. That's not how you get in. You get in through a fish, and they launch ransomware or drive-by or whatever. So we all have all this great security in our homes, our, so to speak, businesses, but we're missing a wall. But the locks work great. Because the pipeline had Proofpoint, right? Great tool, does exactly what it's supposed to do, protects you from these anomalous emails and weird things, but it still doesn't do DMARC, SPF, and DKIM. Right. It doesn't do that. It's not a basic function. It's an advanced, it'll detect and protect you if somebody throws ransomware through your inbox. But if they throw you a link that's brand new with no reputation and looks like a vendor, and you didn't kick it out because it was fraud. So anyway, there's that level of problem for SMBs where they can't see that they have this basic problem with phishing. That's huge. We got to get that out. So I built a free tool. The other big piece of this is once you get your basics down, you have to have operational visibility. You have to have security intelligence that comes in. You have to know everything you can possibly know to be as perfect as you can to defend. Now, not all of us in SMB can reach that security model, but we can get really, really close if we pick the right tools and technology, that enable our people. So the wrong thing to do is to get a new technology that our people can't use. They become frustrated. We have high turnover in a place where we can't afford turnover, right? So we have to have tools that primarily focus on enabling our people to feel good about their job, feel confident, and instead of going to work and having the stress, and they're going to work and they're enjoying. So if you don't have the basics as a cybersecurity expert, when you go to work, it's like getting on a train where there's no engine or there's pieces missing. The basics just aren't there. And it's no fun to be on that train.
And you're not expected when you're on the train to be a mechanic or a train engineer or anything like that.
Make this run.
Yeah, in security, we're almost expecting folks to not only use the tool right, but understand everything behind it. And I think sometimes you kind of touched on that a little bit, where we seem to sometimes be placing too much emphasis or too much expectation upon the end users as opposed, but then again, sometimes we tend to put too much expectation on tools. I think that there's a nice mix between the two, but you mentioned a free tool, and I know that you're working on, I don't think that it's all free, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so that's the big problem that I figured out how to kind of give visibility to. As I was working with the federal government through BOD 1801, I noticed that I could get an email from anybody as anybody to anywhere, and it was really scary because, me as a security practitioner, email was the most boring thing on the planet. I was like, the last thing I want to think about. Stick me with an IPS and some deep packet inspection and show me this OPM breach. And that's what really drove me. And I had just largely ignored the huge problem that they were all attacking. And it took me a really long time to wake up. I was doing a presentation on intrusion prevention, and they asked me to do a phishing presentation. I was so depressed. I said, I don't really want to talk about phishing. Then I uncovered it. I said, oh my God, because I built a tool that could actually test this. I hadn't realized it, that you can actually turn these controls on in your system and they may not work. So you could think that you have these controls turned on and functioning and it looks good. You follow the documentation, you follow the standards, but the fish still come in.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you do that? So as a practitioner, I said, I have to figure out the ways that I can attack a business, and then I have to try it. And I set that whole environment up, and I tried it. And it turns out that those attacks work all the time, like incredibly. And it's hard to defend. And that's why these phishing kits work. So there's a tool, it's fishfacts.com with a PH. You can spell with no F's if you want.
Well, we'll put the URL in the notes. So
Fish Facts. And on Fish Facts, there's a robot that I built that I'm continually building and it's continually learning. And basically, you just put your email in there and it will send you like what I would send to do a test. It send you these emails that poke holes or try to go through these openings if they're there. Now, these openings, if you did the very, very basics and follow the instructions on G Suite, with Office 365, if you read and you followed the instructions when you set it up, then you would not get any of these emails that are sent to you. It sends you 10 emails. And really, you should only there's one control test, email 1, that says, hey, this is a valid email. Let's just make sure you can receive email. And then the other 9 are testing, are you checking SPF? Can you get an email from someone who's spoofed? Do you check that somebody's record is real when you take an email in? Are you checking that your email is from who it says it is? I mean, these really, really basic things that you should be doing. It just says, here's a fake email. And if you get it, it goes, hey, I'm a fake email. You shouldn't get this. Here's your problem.
Now, is this something that anybody can use? And is this something that anybody can use to test other organizations? Or do you have it locked down so that it's only, well, if I want to test like my organization, it'll only send an email to me. So I can't use it as sort of an intel thing. But is that something, is this out there though for anybody to check to see what their email posture is?
Yeah, that was a really hard problem to solve because you'll notice that every tool that's out there is also a weapon.
Right.
Rapid7 is a weapon, Cobalt Strike is a weapon, but it's a security tool. So how do you make a security tool that isn't a weapon? So what we did was we made it so that you can only test yourself. So you send emails to yourself and only you know. So it's completely private, right? If you have a problem because you get an email. So what we do is we decided that this should be something that people do daily if you have a security operations center, and it should be one of your checks. So if you're an enterprise, that's where we have the for pay model where you can subscribe and it'll the robot will assess your environment and tell you if you have holes. Now, SMB is a bit different because we can do some of these things manually. We have some staff, and as long as we have easy enough and empowering tools, a tool where you can put in your email, and if you get the email, it tells you what to do. Tools like that, plain English, where, it only tells you if you have a problem, and you don't have to go read the book and study. A day one IT person can run this test and go, I see our problem. Here's our risk. We're scoring a F on SPF, like instantly within 3 minutes. So it's designed. Now the look and feel is really hard to deal with too. How do you do that kind of test and have it like palatable? How do you have anybody do a penetration test and make sense of it? That's a whole back-end robotic infrastructure to help just make that easy. And what we do is we allow SMBs to come in every month and run a few tests, make sure they're good. It gives them the answers and everything. So if you go to FishFacts, there's a menu button there, and you click it and you can run a test, and it's completely free. We don't do anything with the emails like sell it or anything. Our money is made through the enterprise model, who sees value in compliance and doing this every day. But SMB, sometimes the value isn't there. Sometimes you have 20 users, sometimes you have 100 users, and you just need to check once a month. So we wanted it to be easy. So if you're a vCISO and you want to check the state of an environment, or it's also a great prospecting tool for the vCISO community, right? If you're talking to a company and we say, hey, we think we're good, we don't know if we need your help. Well, let's run a quick test. Just simply put your email in here.
That's somebody calling right now to run a quick test.
No,
right?
that's probably my Amazon delivery.
It's all good. Well, listen, we're almost out of time, and I think this is great. So this is fishfacts.com, right? And so you've launched this, you're running this. What other future plans do you have, either in place or that you're just considering right now?
Yeah, future, biggest impact possible, streamline innovation, getting new things to market as fast as possible so that we can defend ourselves. Right now, of course, the focus is on cyber warfare and making sure that, infrastructure is solid. And that's why, I'm really focused on the phishing, and I'm going to keep focusing there. Also, data loss prevention would be the next step. So, part of this is protecting the data, making sure it doesn't escape. So DLP is a big part of the other side of this that we can tackle, but we're not even there yet. We can't even keep the doors closed from phishing. So phishing first for the next couple of years, then DLP, and willing to help in any way. If anybody has anything they think is innovating that they want me to check out, I always love new stuff, and I always have new stuff. So keep an eye out. But that's pretty much what I'll be doing. And anytime you want me to come on, this is also lots of fun.
Well, Chuck, I got to tell you, it's just like I think that I wish we weren't almost out of time, but we could probably talk for like another hour and a half, and go down other venues. So I will probably take you up on that.
Everybody to sleep.
That's why just a little bit of time, but I'll probably give you a holler back and bring you back, because this has been absolutely fascinating. So that's fishfacts.com. Go out there, check it out, and see if your email is secure or not. Chuck, thank you so much for joining us today, and for everybody, stay secure.